the father has also been identified as the third party that intervenes in the imaginary relationship between mother and child. Personally, I always get a little tripped up when Lacan frames these interactions in terms of child, mother, and father. Where it does make sense to me is when I think about it not from the perspective of childhood, but from my present adult frame of reference. So when I was in graduate school, as is typical, I was assigned an advisor and put into an advisee group. One of the advisees was someone that in some ways was quite like me, especially in regards to our shared passion for bringing together philosophy and psychology. However, this other advisee, who became and still is a close friend, was much better positioned than I was to succeed. He was far more charismatic, far more fluid in his thinking and writing, and was much more adapted to fit within the particular culture of that graduate school environment than I was. Consequently, I went from a position of prominence in my college experience to feeling inadequate and insecure as I was experiencing myself frequently being eclipsed by him. So we might say that I was in a kind of imaginary relationship with someone I identified with and for whom I felt a mixture of love and hate vis-a-vis our relation to the imaginary phallus, which in this situation I would identify as the esteem and respect of our advisor. Indeed, there was a certain degree of fraying at the edges for me, whereby I engaged in some self-sabotaging behaviors that made it a little bit more difficult for me to succeed in graduate school. However, what kept things together ultimately was the fact that my advisor also represented to me an authority that had the power to position me and grant me access to substitute satisfactions. From my vantage point, he held incredible sway over my early career and for this reason was a tremendous source of anxiety for me. He was the one who could write letters of recommendation, who could offer teaching assistant positions, and who was ultimately the gatekeeper for whether I would successfully pass my dissertation defense. And so this figure of the father, my advisor, possessed the symbolic phallus that would mediate my relationship with my friend, preventing things from getting out of hand and forcing me to accept the loss of my previous enjoyment, my jouissance, for the sake of some substitute satisfactions.